Hi. How are you? How's it going, Carlos? Oh, hey, what's up, Miss Chris? How's it going? Great seeing you here. That's such a cute little emo too. Oh my gosh. How's it going? How's it going? My goodness, TGIF, right? I am happy it is Friday. I usually do these streams earlier. I was doing a freelance thing where I was on a roof with some solar panel installers, just like recording them and stuff. So that was kind of fun. So that's what I was up to earlier today. Yeah, it was pretty cool. It was pretty neat, honestly. It was and they were really nice too. So it was cool to see that, and I'm just basically going to like talk to them about how they got interested in the industry and all that kind of stuff. So it's pretty fun. I missed going out in the field, honestly. I haven't gone out in the field for a story in a really long time, and so I missed that, and I want to do that more. Maybe good future videos or something. I'm not promising anything because I overpromise way too much. Anyways, today, so there were other things that Becky was going to talk about today. But then Becky saw this. So Becky needs to talk about it. Okay, I'm done with the third person thing. So let's discuss. So I think I'm getting a little political on this Twitch stream, but it's interesting. Okay, all right. So as you saw, the title is GOP plans collusion probe into climate groups. House Republicans want to launch investigations into a baseless claim that China and Russia unduly influence U.S. climate activism. Why it matters. Republicans are using this claim to seek donation information from climate groups that and could potentially use subpoenas. Maybe I need to switch out of that category because I feel like, it's all politicized, but I'm ironically not trying too hard to be political all the time. I don't really know how the categories work very well. That's a funny observation, Miss Priss. I didn't even think about that. Anyways, okay, well, there you go. Honestly, there really haven't been all that many trolls. Anyway, I don't think there's been too many trolls in my channel so far, so I've been okay with that. I was just kind of figuring that the politics one would at least have more, I don't know, interest in general than some of the other ones, so that's why I targeted it. But maybe I'll go into the news one if there's a news one. Yeah, Carlos is ready to go all Hulk smash on anyone, so don't worry. But yeah, today no, we have some tea. We have some tea. Well, I have coffee, but we also have some tea. Republicans are using this claim to seek donation information from climate groups and could potentially use subpoenas. Oh. Driving the news, House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy of California said last week that if elected House Speaker, he'd support investigations into environmental NGOs' collusion with Russia and China to hurt American energy. GOP offices have sent many climate group oversight letters in the past year, suggesting they're part of foreign influence campaigns, including multiple citing a debunked claim that one foundation may have been used as a conduit for Russian money. The letters asked for donor information and details about communications with other governments, including China. Asked if he'd subpoena environmental groups, incoming House Natural Resources Chair Bruce Westerman of Arkansas said, "If I need to, I will. If there's evidence the Chinese government is funding their actions, we have to go after them. I don't care what kind of group they are," he said. Now, do you really think he's not biased? Oh, hell nah, this sounds like some McCarthyism. Westerman said the subject is not a really high priority right now compared to energy legislation. We'll get more into that in a sec. And we've got to gather the data first. But Westerman deeply cares about this. He helped lead these efforts in Congress, including a 2018 effort to probe whether some activist talks with China violated a foreign agent's registration law. Quote, House Republicans have legitimate oversight questions regarding environmentalist NGOs and their interactions with foreign actors and will use investigative authority to get answers for the American people, said McCarthy spokesperson Mark Bender. What we're hearing, environmental groups vehemently deny the GOP's accusations. Still, some sources at some targeted groups told Axios they are taking the potential legal threat seriously. Some of the GOP letters to activists used a debunk claim about a charity called Sea Change Foundation being a pass-through for Russia financing climate groups. Do you guys remember this? I remember this. There is no evidence of Russian money to the foundation, and the family behind it has repeatedly said it's funded by their own money. A Washington Post fact check found that the claim originates from a report by Environmental Policy Alliance, an AstroTurf front group that has received support from oil executives. It just gets deeper. Also, projections, lol, right? Between the lines, experts do worry that China and Russia may gain leverage over the U.S. as it ditches fossil fuels because of where global supply chains exist today. Okay. Unlike fossil fuels, the U.S. controls relatively few resources used to make electric vehicle batteries. However, same thing with Europe. So it's not just a U.S. unique problem. China has a stronghold on global supplies for many of these materials and dominates the semiconductor industry. Russia, a gas hub, also produces a lot of nickel and low-carbon aluminum. Yes, but there is no proof to date that either China or Russia is funding U.S. activism to quit fossil fuels. In 2014, the head of NATO claimed that Russians boosted an anti-fracking campaign in Europe as an influence operation, but it did not mention the U.S. I've not looked further into that, but that is interesting too. But so I woke up this morning and saw that. And I was like, okay. And what's also a little more ironic about me seeing that this morning was that last night I was, for fun, and this is weird, and you can let me know if this is super boring, in which case we can do other things. But no, I was looking at congress.gov, and just for funsies, I don't know, I was seeing what different things relating to climate change have been introduced recently. I haven't really gone through this process before, but it's really interesting. Actually, just taking out climate change for a second, it's interesting to see how many things are introduced, like every single day, but then how many things are then for specific policies. Yes. Okay. Yeah. So I was just looking at a bunch and it's interesting how, like, you know, they can have like a bunch of introduced things, but a lot of them, like the summaries for them, are not even created yet. So they're kind of just like empty vessels, almost like political statements that then don't get followed up on. Democrats and Republicans both do that, which is very interesting. But you can go through it and see, like, you know, what things have actually been passed through the House, passed through the Senate, that sort of thing. Yeah, it's interesting because I was going through, like, they have like different subcommittees, right? So I was going through some subcommittees. So they have in the Environment and Public Works, no, that's not it. Well, they have energy. They have a lot of them. So there was a bunch to, there's like agriculture is another one. So I just think that would be kind of interesting to just see what different things have been passed. But I also am curious just because, what's his name? Bruce Westerman. I haven't looked up to see what his bills are that he has tried to pass, and I'm really curious, so we might start with him. It's also interesting to ask people who are in politics to name and articulate what specific policies do on a technical level. Very, very, very few people read through these policies, including politicians. Yeah, right? And yet it's all publicly available information. So I just think it's interesting. I was looking at all the ones because they're going through like a huge dump of legislation right now because, you know, we're heading towards the holiday season. So there was so many from just like yesterday. There was one in particular that I want to show. That, let's see if I can find it. It's do you really trust big green energy? Big green energy. Do I trust that wind and solar and other forms of clean energy can replace fossil fuels? Yes. Yes, I do. Is there such thing as a big green energy like there is for big oil? No. Not really. There's like a couple big names to some extent, but it is not the same monopolized industry as fossil fuels. So, all right, loss. There it is. Here's a fun one. This one was introduced 2 days ago by Doug LaMalfa from California. Thanks, California. That I'm in California, so great. This is what I was looking at. There was a bill sponsored by 10 others. You could probably guess what political party they were from. To prohibit the use of federal funds to negotiate or contribute to international agreements that provide for loss and damage funds as a result of climate change. To prohibit any federal funds from being used for that purpose? Okay. So see, there's some interesting ones in here. But yeah, let's start with, let's make yeah, exactly. Let's make a law real quick. And of course it doesn't have any information on it yet. I don't think it's like blank. Yeah, the legislative analyst of the Congressional Research Service will begin analyzing this legislation after text becomes available. There's no text yet. So, hey, what's up, Read and Rap? How's it going? I'm going to propose this bill right here to ban climate change. We want no funds in this state. None. Exactly. Oh, there's so many that are really, really, really special like that. You know. To amend the Clean Air Act to create a national zero emissions vehicle standard and for other purposes. That sounds interesting. Is there any language on that one yet? No, not yet. Yeah, so these ones are all super early, so pretty much like whatever their title is pretty much what they are. This is interesting. To amend the Energy Policy and Conservation Act to reinstate a ban on the export of crude oil and natural gas produced in the U.S. and for other purposes. A ban on export of crude oil and natural gas. This is really interesting. And this one is actually recommended by a Democrat. What's interesting about this, and this was not the only one that I saw that was in this vein of topic, specifically proposed by Democrats, which is interesting. The other one was purposely going directly against like some legislation that was developed, I want to say in 2018? It might have been earlier. But it was the original legislation that made it so that exporting fossil fuels was actually cheaper, pretty much, than just keeping it in the country. And that is basically like the main reason why, even though gas prices are like getting super high and stuff, while increasing the domestic production of fossil fuels, it won't increase our domestic supply because fossil fuel companies think it's more advantageous to just go ahead and export it instead. So this and another one would make it so you have to keep at least the oil in the borders, and that would then lower our domestic prices. And that way, potentially, maybe it would discourage the argument of creating new projects for the sake of decreasing gas prices. Does that make any sense? So that's something that I saw, which was really interesting. Both of them were too early to have anything done about it. All right, well, hopefully my explanation made sense of why this is interesting, but it would be potentially a big deal if they decide to do that. But this is another one where the text is not quite available. Oh, yeah. Okay, to amend Title 41 U.S. Code to prohibit the head of agencies from requiring the disclosure of greenhouse gas emissions and the implementation of greenhouse gas emissions reduction targets by federal contractors or for other purposes. Wow. My goodness. They want to make it so that there is no requiring of disclosure at all. Like, forget actually doing something about the gases. Let's just not even talk about them. Disclosure requirements? Yikes. Yeah, right? That's like not even actually doing anything. That's just even having the data to talk about it. Expressing the sense of the House of Representatives that the U.S. should re-engage with trading partners, particularly like-minded allies with market-based economies and high labor and environment standards, to promote trade in environmental goods, services, and technologies in new or existing bilateral and plurilateral dialogues with a view to negotiating a new environmental goods agreement with updated product coverage to broaden United States export opportunities, supply United States jobs, and enhance the environmental contribution of any new trade agreement. That would be interesting. That's from Kevin Bradley. Interesting. Okay. We are looking at legislation, like recent legislation that's happening in the US, because we were looking at this earlier. I've been on the legislation brain recently. So, yeah. This was my reaction today.
I'm so drained right now, bro. I'm not gonna sit here and lie to you and be like, oh yeah, I'm fine. No, motherfucker, I'm drained. I'm done. I'm exhausted, bro. Like, I'm so drained right now, bro. I'm not gonna sit here and lie to you and be like, oh.
So that was my reaction this morning. Follow me on TikTok if you want. I mostly just regurgitate news, climate news from the climate recaps, but I'm trying to be funnier. Unduly influence, like promote it. Yeah. So, all right, let's go through it like quickly one more time, okay? So Republicans are using this claim to seek donation information from climate groups that could potentially use subpoenas. And basically, House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy said that if he was elected House Speaker again, he would support investigations into environmental NGOs for collusion with Russia and China to hurt American energy, even though there's no evidence of this. And the only main evidence that they keep pointing to is this debunked, fact-checked claim that the Sea Change Foundation was using Russian money. And that information was given by a report by the Environmental Policy Alliance, which is an AstroTurf front group that has received support from fossil fuel executives. So that's what's happening. It's funny how that podcast I sent, the author insinuated that there was also a minority group with China that believed climate change was a hoax too, to undermine power of the nation state. A Western plot. Of course. That is perfect. So this is what's happening when Republicans are going to leave the House. And these are things to look forward to. There is one other one that I will show you in just a sec I'm piecing out information to you guys, basically. But this is what got me into legislation. Well, actually, ironically, I was looking at this legislation before, like last night, but not this particular one. This one was recently given to me. Hey, what's up, Pablo? Thank you very much for following me. I greatly appreciate it. So yeah, these things are perversive. They exist beyond the US too, although not at the same scale. Yeah, no, I understand absolutely that. It's like this feels like something that should have happened like 10 years ago. It shouldn't be happening now, but of course it's happening now because we're so far behind in figuring this out. Like if this was in Europe, this would have happened like 10 years ago, but it's happening now in the US because we're so far behind in our mentality to climate change. So Russia and China are funding groups which promote transition to renewables. Yeah, honestly, if they were doing that, I'd be like, great. But, to Republicans who think that renewables equate to energy insecurity and further reliance on China, to them, they're like thinking that this is bad, So that's their mentality around it. Yeah. Hello. So, we have to pause for, oh my goodness, I did not mean to do that, but wait, you cannot leave me. Okay. We needed a room moment. Oh, wrong side. There you go. There's a baby boy. You look so mad. Okay. It's called Growing Climate Solutions Act, and I wanted to look at it with you. So this was recommended by the local citizen climate lobby. If you have one in your area, maybe check them out. They're pretty cool. Pretty good climate group to join. So it's passed the Senate, but not the House, I believe. Wait, is that possible? I think. Sorry, my ignorance on certain parts of this topic is showing. But, okay. So, this bill is interesting. It authorizes the Department of Agriculture to establish a voluntary greenhouse gas technical assistance provider and third-party verifier certificate program to help reduce entry barriers into the voluntary environmental credit markets for farmers, ranchers, and private forest landowners. A voluntary environmental credit market is a market through which agriculture and forestry credits may be bought or sold. Entities eligible to participate in the program are one, providers of technical assistance to farmers, ranchers, and private forest landowners in carrying out sustainable land use management practices that prevent, reduce, or mitigate greenhouse gas emissions or sequester carbon, or third-party verifiers that conduct the verification of the processes described in the protocols for voluntary environmental credit markets. But anyways, so I thought these were interesting. But now I think what I want to do is I want to talk about this other thing right here, which was just a few days earlier. So if it would come down to a new year, the GOP won't even give it enough attention to use it as congressional toilet paper. Maybe. So that's another one that actually is bipartisan, and it also has 100 co-sponsors. So it might be of interest. I don't know. Because there are certain things that Republicans actually seem to support to some extent, but it only is if it doesn't hurt like the big industries, like fossil fuels or like meat. Those they won't touch. But if it does something that's like kind of useful, then they might consider it. So this is an example of that. GOP plans climate probe the left might like. Anything that has to do with making money, they're generally going to want to pass. Exactly. So if you make it something that they're going to benefit from, that's going to make them money, then they're going to like it. House Republicans are planning on an onslaught of investigations into Biden's climate policies that could have an unintended consequence, asking questions progressives want answered. Why it matters. The probes could set the table for conversations between Republicans and Democrats in the new Congress about the thorny aspects of transitioning away from fossil fuels, including human rights. Some Republicans say they hope the oversight plans create an opening for bipartisan conversation about cleaning up the dirtier aspects of clean energy. Do I think that coming out of the gate, you're going to have conservatives holding hands and saying, yeah, let's do this? No. But I think you will see folks that come to the table willing to talk about these issues. And that is the head of the Climate Conservation and Energy Caucus thing that we looked at last Friday. Republicans have sent scores of letters to Biden administration officials signaling that next year we'll see probes on how President Biden handles many risks and trade-offs with his approach to climate. Yes, but the House's only goal going forward is to stop any legislation Dems introduce for the next 2 years, whether it hurts them or not. That's potentially also true. It's, yeah. If it's going to, there's a decent chance it's just going to be like the second half of the Obama administration and everything is just going to get blocked. That's absolutely a high potential. And yeah, I got nothing for you because it could be true. But there are a couple things that for some reason seem to have bipartisan support. And so we're going to see if maybe something maybe might happen. We're going a little bit on hopium. I recognize that. They plan on discussing drawbacks of the energy transition that environmentalist labor groups and human rights advocates also want more attention on. The thing is, though, is that they're going to do this in the context of wanting to slow the whole process down. So that's, we need to be smart about that. We know that that's true. These include working conditions at overseas mine projects and whether moonshot climate technologies are really viable solutions for quick carbon cuts, which is ironic because they love carbon capture and just moonshot things because they want the things that are going to take forever to do so that there's no risks to fossil fuels in the near future. So I don't know about them actually really caring about whether or not there's moonshot technologies or not, but maybe. One of the investigations will focus on an Energy Department loan program responsible for the Obama era scandal around Solyndra. Do you guys know about this one? I don't remember this one. I mean, I guess I could look right here. Progressives also want the loan program to face more scrutiny. The transition from burning fossil fuels to avert a climate catastrophe will have a myriad of consequences for American way of life, from higher prices to greenflation to a new mining boom. The GOP preferred solution, like an emphasis on burning natural gas, remain out of step with what scientists say we need to address climate change. Yes, but Brett Hertel, Government Affairs Director for the nonprofit Center of Biological Diversity, says this oversight work is needed because Democrats aren't spending more time on whether Biden's climate strategy is actually saving the planet. That's true. We don't want to be putting all our money into something that's not worth it, right? So that's true. However, I'm skeptical that they're actually going to properly look over it. At the same time, he's suspicious of the GOP's oversight because much of their core ideology is based on dismantling federal agencies like the EPA. Exactly. Yeah, the Republican plan, the Texas Republican plan that was introduced earlier this year, it specifically wanted to defund the whole EPA. It is a classical stopped clock, right twice a day. Stopped clock right twice a day type of thing. I think it's an unfortunate reality that there's not enough oversight coming from the Democrat side. The bottom line, Republicans are about to help progressives get more information about climate policy issues where they're frustrated with the Biden administration. So that could be interesting. It could be interesting. Will it be? I don't know. Solyndra, the solar panel company, which received more than $535 million in federal loan guarantees, dominated headlines and Republican talking points after it declared bankruptcy in 2011. The Obama administration's detractors used the firm's failure to blast Democratic spending on energy projects funded under the 2009 stimulus bill. The administration and its allies went on the defense as they sought to justify the broader spending. It was the scandal of the year back then. Interesting. Thank you for sharing. I had no idea. I'd heard of it before, but it's been a while, obviously. So I forgot what it was about. So thank you very much for that.